Hi! Okay, so before we talk about Croquis, I want to talk about two books really quick. This fashion illustration book, which is amazing because it covers so many different types of fabric, way more than I'm going to be able to cover in this semester. And it's also going to go over poses, which are great because these are two things that there are infinite variations of. And so this book is going to help you answer any questions that I cannot answer in these videos. So these are some different dynamic poses. It's going to talk about balance lines, how to pivot the body. These are the two basic styles of croquis. So you're straight on and then a dynamic pose, which means it's angled in some way. So that is the first book, and it is beautiful and I love it. It's just so cute. It looks so good. This other book, guys, I'm so excited to talk about these because they're so worth your money. Anyways, this book talks about different poses for different types of attire. Like honestly, you wouldn't even think that these are different. Like you wouldn't think that sportswear poses are really different than evening gown poses. I don't know why I didn't think that was a difference, but they are. And so this book is going to give you so many different poses. All of my poses for my croquis probably come from this book or Pinterest. So these puppies are seriously worth your money, guys. I'm not even joking. Oh, also, okay, one more thing. This book goes over the measurements for your croquis. So if you watch the video and then you kind of forget what the measurements were, this book is amazing because it'll list out all the measurements for you. Now what I want to do is I want to show you my croquis because they are a little bit different than the normal croquis. The measurements are just a little bit different. You know, they've got a bigger head, they're taller, the feet are a little bit bigger, and they're just a little bit skinnier. I like to do this because it makes them look taller. So these left croquis are done in marker and the right ones are done in watercolor. Both really cool mediums. They work probably about the same, right? For this course, we're gonna work from light to dark, and it's really the same thing for both croquis. You use the same method to shade and everything, so it's really just a matter of figuring out which medium you like, right? Which one fits your vibe best, okay? If you're doing more elegant stuff, maybe you want to do watercolor. Maybe you want something a little bit more graphic, more illustrative, almost like it's a cartoon kind of thing, streetwear. Then let's do marker. Both of them super cool. You can do everything in both mediums, but we'll get into that later. Right now, I just want to talk about measurements for croquis so you guys can learn how to do them and make your own. Okay, let's go. So, first things first, I want you guys to draw out the measurements 0 to 10 on a sheet of paper, and I want you to make a little horizontal line at each number, okay? Once you've got this done, we're going to go in and we're going to create some vertical lines wherever you want to place those croquis. This is called your balance line, which is the center of gravity for your croquis. This is where she stands. So it's really important to have this vertical line here. So when you're drawing your croquis, you don't make her look like she's falling over. Believe it or not, it's really important to make sure that your croquis looks like she is standing like a normal human being. So you want these vertical lines here to kind of keep you on that track. You know how when you write without lines on your paper, you kind of curve them up? That's what's going to happen to your croquis if you don't have these balance lines. So that's why we put them here. They're just a cute little guide to keep them sticking upright. I went ahead and I labeled all of the measurements for your croquis so that you can kind of see it as I'm going along. So I'm just going to read them through with you. So from 0 to 1, you are going to have your head. This is, the head. From 1 to 1.5, you're going to have a neck. So at 1.5, you're going to have your shoulders. 2 is your bust. 3 is your waist. 4 are hips. 5 are fingertips. And while we're on the subject of arms, your elbows are at 3 and your wrists are at 4. And so your fingertips are at 5, your knees are at 6, 7 are calves, 8 are shins, 9 are ankles, and way at the bottom are number 10, and that is the bottom of your feet. So, in case you were wondering, the human body is about 7 heads tall, and croquis are anywhere from 9 to 11 heads tall. We stretch out the leg to make them that tall. because there's not a lot of detail in the middle of the leg, like around the knee area, so there's no design distortion when you're illustrating, and croquis just look a little bit more graceful with long legs. So that's the basic difference between a croquis and a normal human body. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to just sketch out the croquis with you. So we're going to start at the head. So usually what I do for the head is I draw a circle about 3/4 of that first inch. And then after that, we're going to go in and we're going to make like a smooth triangle to make the chin. And we're going to take that chin down to the 1 inch mark. After this, you're just going to draw 2 straight lines down for the neck. So when you're sketching out your croquis, don't worry about like having the perfect like angle or like curve to your croquis. Right now we're just sketching it in. We're just blocking everything in with shapes. So don't worry about it. And so after that, you're just going to make a straight line for your shoulders. And it's about like 2.5 head widths usually. And then you're going to make little circles for your shoulders. Something else to remember, that when you are drawing joints, so like your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, knees, ankles, you need to make sure that you are drawing those circles like the actual width of that joint. You don't want to make like little tiny circles or dots or like beach ball elbows, because when you flesh it out, that circle is going to be the actual width of your joint. So just make sure that you have that in mind when you are drawing those little circles. Once you have the shoulders placed in, you can go in with the bust. So you're going to draw 2 circles right on that line. The apex of the chest is going to fall on that 2 line, and then obviously the circles are going to surround it. So you want to make the whole entire chest just a little bit smaller than the shoulders. So make sure that those circles end on the inside of the shoulder circles. And once you have those placed in and pretty symmetrical, you can move down to the waist. From here, you're going to draw a line from the middle of that shoulder circle down to the waist. So it's probably going to cut through that bust circle, which is actually perfect because when you flesh it out, you want to have a little bit of that bust creating shape along the silhouette of your croquis. I like to make a little horizontal line at the waist, and then from there, I will make a trapezoid figure down to that 4 line. And I want to make sure that the base of that trapezoid is about the width of the shoulders themselves. After this, I like to draw little circles for my knees, remembering that you are drawing these circles the same width as the joint. So I'll draw 2 circles on either side of that balance line for the knees, and then I will go in and I will connect that line from like about halfway between the balance line and the end of the hip to that knee. Once that's laid in, I'll go in and I will fill in little circles for the ankles, making sure that those circles are smaller than the knee circles, and I will connect those two just like I did with the hip to the knee circles. After that, I will make a little raindrop shape for the feet. I don't get too detailed with it, and honestly, it's kind of creepy if you do get really detailed with your feet, so I just make little raindrop shapes, making sure that the base of the raindrop is at that 10 point. And then once you're done with that, you'll go back up to the arms and you'll lay in little elbow circles at the 3 line. Once you have that done, you can go and you can connect those two. And usually I stick my elbows out a little bit from the body just because that's how our arms naturally fall. After this, we're going to put in little tiny wrist circles. These are going to be the smallest circles on your croquis. And you're going to lay one on each side of the hip at number 4 and do the same thing that you've done before. You're going to connect those puppies. After this, I like to make like a little, it's like a triangle shape for the hand, connecting it to that wrist point. And I usually end that triangle at about like 4.5, 4 3/4, somewhere in there, leaving enough room for fingertips if you so choose to include them. I do not because it's too much detail for me. However, if you want to, you'll just draw little upside down triangles that land at the 5 mark. Look at that, nice! You made your first little robotic croquis. Isn't that kind of fun? It's really not that hard. And once you get the proportions all down, super easy. And then we'll go in and we'll talk about fleshing them out. But first, I just want to show you guys how I do my croquis in case you are interested in exaggerating any kind of body part or making them taller or, slimming out the figure a little bit. Because all bodies are different. And once you make your croquis your own, they become a lot cooler, right? You get your own style, and then people can look at your croquis and be like, I know that. Like, I associate that with a certain person, which is super awesome. So I really encourage you to make your own. And so I want to just talk a little bit about mine so you get inspired to exaggerate your own croquis and stylize them in your own way. So what I do first is I still start out with that head, but what I do is I add 1/2 inch to the top of my measurement, and I will make this circle still go down to about that 3/4 mark into the first measurement. So it's actually 3/4 plus 1/2 inch, which is 1.25 inches, I believe. I took AP Calc. You would think I would know these things. I digress. I make something that looks like a circle, and then I will go in, I'll add the chin, and I will hit the bottom of the chin on that 1 inch mark. And once I finish my lopsided head, I like to make a really skinny neck. You'll notice that a lot of my proportions are a lot thinner than the normal croquis. This makes my croquis just look a lot taller than they are, and it will exaggerate that head and the hips later on because I do like a curvy croquis. So from there, I'll go in and I will fill in my shoulder circles. I make my shoulder circles smaller than the normal croquis shoulders and about the width of the head itself rather than 2 heads, just because she's already got a massive head. We don't need massive shoulders to go with it. Now you guys might notice that I fill in my waist before I fill in my bust. It's just kind of how, I don't know, I just prefer that method a little bit more. You'll notice that once you actually kind of learn how to do croquis, you won't be blocking them in as much. You'll just go straight in and kind of fill in the body. So when I do block it out, I like to block in that whole torso at once and then go in and make the bust. And then after that, I will go in and I'll do that trapezoidal shape for the hips again. But you might notice that I take my base of my trapezoid and I make it about the width of the shoulders, maybe a little bit more. I think this just gives the croquis a little bit more angle to her because she's so skinny, right? So I want to create some curves there, so I'm going to do bigger hips. Following the theme of exaggerated, unrealistic body parts, I make some super tiny knees. And then I go in and I make really skinny ankles. When I actually flesh out my croquis, usually it just comes to a point at the ankle. You don't even really see it. So those little circles are just kind of a reference point for me. Then I'll go in and I'll connect all the lines like you normally do. And because my legs are so skinny on my croquis, I can make them straight vertically. Whereas with a normal croquis, it might be a little bit angled outwards to create that balance. From there, I'll just make those little feet shape again like I do with the traditional croquis. And going back up to the top of those croquis, I am going to fill in some little teeny tiny elbow circles because, it's just on theme for me at this point. And then I'll connect the lines and I'll make some really small little wrist circles and I'll connect those, surprise. And then from there, because I don't put fingers on my croquis, I just do the whole raindrop shape all the way down to the 5 mark. You guys will learn that I am on a time budget and I'm lazy, so I don't like to mess around with the whole fingertip thing. It's just really not my thing. And I'd rather put my time elsewhere. So now that you have your croquis done and you have seen mine, I encourage you to exaggerate your croquis, to play around with proportions, to fix anything that's like that, to fix anything that is like asymmetrical, mess around with that, kind of get used to laying out those body parts in different spots. And then we will go in and we'll flesh them out.